You hear that? The warning bell. It's here. And you can't resist it, can't you? Is it possible for a killer-sided map to be this much fun? Wanderers, if you have reached this message, stay here, so I can tell you why I love Midwich as a killer and a survivor. Good evening, Wanderers. Thank you for joining me. Currently paying a visit to my hometown of Silent Hill. Plain and simple, I will say it. I don't care what side I'm on, I love coming to this town. Weird to say for someone who faced a lot of deep, dark trauma here.
Hello?
But it's time I talk about what I consider to be a fun map. To anyone who remembers our Springwood video from the beginning of the year, if you haven't watched that video, why not watch it now, you lovable nerd?
Who are you?
Hi, I'm SeeNog. Heather, I'm at the Midwich map. Hurry, and hop on a gen before someone decides to go next. Oh, come on, he's pointing at the hook. No, don't help him. But seriously, thank you guys that watched that Springwood video. Got a lot of good feedback and I really appreciate it. Now, I want to do more map critiques and tip videos. However, I want to make a few things clear. Number one is when I do a map critique, I'm going to try to offer advice for both sides, killer and survivor. I mean, I like to joke about killer main logic and survivor main logic, but I don't really like doing tribalism or anything like that. So if I give advice for one side, I'll try to balance it out by offering advice for the other. You just can't have, in DBD, you just can't have one side without the other. The second thing I want to get across is that I want to critique maps in DBD, but I don't want each video to be as negative as the Springwood was, as you know, And I think that would be easy, as Springwood really is one of the worst maps that DBD has to offer. However, I genuinely believe there's a lot to love about Midwich itself. So if you find yourself in Midwich, don't sweat it. Stick around. By the end of this video, I'll make sure you have some ideas of what you can do to defend yourself, whether you're a killer or a survivor. That being said, let's talk about it. There's a lot to talk about when deciding what makes a fun map for DBD. When you're playing DBD, fun and map design does not always seem to connect. Does the map itself have a good concept? Is the map the right size to encourage a healthy amount of killer and survivor interaction? Are those interactions fun for both sides and compelling to keep the players invested? And then let me tell you, Midwich has a lot to offer players. Sometimes 1 or 2 matches are not enough to soak it all in. The setting of Midwich Elementary in itself is a very complex setting. You have your different classrooms, a courtyard, and even a small library upstairs. It almost looks like a real elementary school. Now, hold it. A real elementary school? What the heck is this guy going on about? I'll tell you. Midwich, by all means, is a school in Silent Hill and is abandoned. But when you first approach Midwich Elementary in Silent Hill 1 as Harry Mason, you approach the real school. The level there is a lot more colorful, more so than the blood-rusted red we see on our DBD map. So what's going on? It's only when Harry crosses this strange path beneath the clock tower that he unlocks by picking up the gold and silver medallions hidden throughout the school. Upon opening the clock tower and going through the underground pathway, does he emerge in the whole nightmarish delusion come to life bit.
Where am I? Have I been here before? I don't remember this being here before.
This is, in fact, a journey that we can experience for ourselves and the hidden Easter egg that Midwich holds. Upon completing specific gens, we can actually affix the gold and silver medallions on the clock tower. Specifically, the gen in the science lab and the generator in the music room. By the way, this here, the crossing the clock tower and then emerging in the other world, this here other world is the true setting of our DBD map. It's a nightmarish replica of the elementary school. I guess if you really want to get technical, it's the entity's replica of the nightmarish replica of Midwich Elementary. My head's starting to spin. Let's move on. Oh, and that Easter egg, in case you're wondering, if you don't have the right gens sadly spawned in, then you can't open that clock tower. Oh, and don't worry, you're not really missing out on anything if you don't open that clock tower. You want to know what's in that chest?
Huh, great. What do I win?
Nothing! Now get out!
But there are some really cool details, though. For example, that rip-off knockoff Triforce you see floating around. That's actually the key of sorts that Dahlia Gillespie gives to Harry Mason as she's deceiving him. And then there is the Halo of the Sun. That symbol is more prominent to Heather in Silent Hill 3. It even serves as our save points.
On my door and you won't leave my home.
Yeah, the killer's on me.
I am
Looks like all they want to chase is me.
they say.
Awesome.
Anyway, I'm just trying to taste this Michaela before the next generators pop.
So it's time to really talk about how Midwich itself encourages its daily dosage of mindless games in DBD. The standard DBD match gameplay loop, if you will. Surely, by gameplay loop, you know what I mean. 4 survivors, 1 killer spawn in a map. Survivors rush to complete their gens, while the killer walks up to the survivors politely to give them the whack. Survivors can either open the exit gate and exchange complimentary tea bags with the killer on their way out, or the killer offs these 4 cute little weirdos before that. Yeah, that gameplay loop. I bring this up because it's time to gauge if the characteristics of Midwich as a map encourage a healthy gameplay loop. It's time to bring up the map of Midwich. This map, to be exact. I'm starting to really enjoy making cute little maps like these for you guys in Photoshop. Sure, it's no Gerard McCurdy or anything, and disclaimer, I didn't capture or document all the gen spawns per se, but just enough that you can kind of see how the gen spawns like to work. Now, in all seriousness, Midwich is considered one of the smallest DBD maps, which is good because it gives every killer a fair chance to play here. It doesn't matter how badly you need to M1, it does not take long at all to go from one end to the other. This current version of Midwich, each corner of the map has an open staircase or ramp to go between the different floors. Also, there are fewer breakable doors, so for example the ramps in the restrooms are now free to access at all times. However, these ramps or staircases also serve as choke points. Be careful getting caught here. If you didn't get an aura read on the killer, you may have to guess which floor they are on, and sometimes this has caused me to run into the killer, or survivors have ran into me as killer. Hooking the Zarina here, we caught a funny little aura read on a Yui downstairs. However, take a look at where she got caught. Because we caught her near the stairs, hooked her in the basement, and then went back upstairs, and look, we're already on as someone's scratch marks, even though it was where we hooked Zarina. But because Yui got caught by the stairs by the choke point, we were already able to get on someone else's tail again, when otherwise they should have been really far away on the second floor. But again, the choke points on the stairs are very nasty and can be very good to control when you're on this map. And no offense to the Yui either. Had she lured me away from the stairs though, or at the very least hid away from the stairs, and if I decided I wanted to go back upstairs, I would have to do all that climbing to first find a stairs or ramp, and then go to where I want to go on the second floor. And survivors, you want to keep this in mind too, because to a killer, even a gen in a courtyard might be more preferable than a gen in the lower classrooms, where the killer that isn't nurse is forced to go all the way around, go up the stairs or ramps, and then work their way back to where the next gen to check. Because at least if there's a gen in the courtyard, they can check it from the second floor when passing through this window here. The choke points are bad too. Take this northern hallway here. I know it probably doesn't look like a hallway, but when I was researching the level in Silent Hill 1, the maps called this room a hallway. Anyway, if the killer gets a hook here and does not break this door here, they can force survivors to go all the way around to endgame to get the unhook. And body blocking here can waste a lot of time for the survivors. Now, if you ever find yourself stuck in a situation where the killer wants to body block this doorway and you can't go around because this door has never been kicked and can't exactly go through, and see that hook back there? Yeah, your teammate's hooked there, right? Thanks, Charlotte. You see, the advantage of being spread out as a team, you kind of want to, if someone's going for the door, or if there's other people down here, out here, hanging out up there is really useful. Yeah, here we are in the library reserve room in the library, and underneath us is the same hallway. But being spread out, and if you have someone hanging up here, you don't waste a lot of time, and you can begin to pressure that hook, or if there's a hook here, you can begin to pressure both sides, and then if the killer wants to keep their hook, then they have to move from that doorway. But if they want to stay there and remain body block, which to me it's funny, I don't have a problem with that. If they want to stay there, then the survivors are forced to go all the way around. And if time is not on your side, endgame collapses, because that's what's allowing them to stay there so close to that hook. As endgame collapse, the anti-camp timer goes away, and so if they're chilling out here at that doorway and there's no other way in and out of this room, then being upstairs has its advantages, because on this map there are more ways to go downstairs than there are upstairs, because you can immediately jump out this window and make a beeline for the gate there, or if you want to get really close, you can go down that hole in the science room and book it. But in just this one area, there's 1, 2, 3, and then 4 on this side of the building. There are 4 ways to go downstairs, but the only ways to go upstairs on this side of the map are these stairs and the ramp in the library / hallway. Okay, now having 2 condensed floors on one map has a weird effect on our cast of killers as well. In Dead by Daylight, we're very used to, it's easy to fall into the understanding that a killer that is good at mobility can dominate the map, and that's why killers like Nurse or Kaneki are really good at what they do. But then there's the issue with the 2 floors. Pretty much the only killer that can really that really does not have to respect the 2 floors is Nurse, but even then Nurse has a bit of problems too, and we'll talk about that. But the dynamic of power almost does a 180, whereas some of the weaker killers have a chance to participate in the match on Midwich to some extent, and that can be what makes playing killer and then getting Midwich by chance really fun for the killer. In the hallways, they recently added a whole bunch of clutter that can block line of sight, so not every hallway is just I can peek down this hallway and see if anyone's coming, or if anyone's trying to dart into room to room. No, but also it allows more cover for weaker killers because, it works both ways. Killers have a harder time spotting survivors, but survivors also have a harder time spotting the killer. And the funny thing about this clutter is that if you're a high mobility killer other than Nurse, like Kaneki or Hillbilly, then your best chance, if you really want to go across the bottom floor one way to the other, you might as well cut through the courtyard, because the courtyard's going to be a lot more clearer than any of these hallways now. So I did just recheck the hallways a little bit, and it is RNG based, map generation, luck, all that. But sometimes you get a little bit of clutter in the hallways that can sort of be an inconvenience to a higher mobility killer, or sometimes you even get a weird little loop like this, and I think it's a really creative loop actually. So just the hallways shouldn't just serve a whole purpose of either running down or having that one god pallet in the corner. Now, if a nurse ever sends you to Midwich, don't give up against Nurse, because even the queen has her days. Now the nurse actually, when she's blinking, can, if she's not careful, if she's not paying attention, she may blink from one floor to the other when she didn't intend to. Like if she's on the second floor and you rush, as you're trying to loop her, you rush her in mid blink, and her first thought may be to I'm just gonna let go of my blink and go like 1 foot ahead of me. No, if the nurse player isn't paying attention, they'll blink to the bottom floor and they may have to use another blink to get all the way up, or if they use their last blink, then they may be SOL. And it also makes looping narrow hallways funny, because if they overextend their blink, they may go out into the courtyard, or vice versa. They may go out into the hallway and lose you by, for a nurse it may be like a second or two to get from the hallway to the courtyard, but then for any other killer that's like half a minute. That's like 20 seconds of walking, which it can be really funny when that happens. Now, Nurse being in a league of her own is nothing new, but what other killers are really good at Midwich? So with it being an indoor map, Ghostface and Myers, I hear that groan, don't you groan at me, but Ghostface and Myers love this map as they have a lot of cover to skulk around in. Sadako and Wraith, who have the stealth but also the mobility to back it up. Even your trap-based killers, you got Trapper and Hag, who are well equipped for this map. More so Trapper. Hag is at the mercy of people triggering her traps to move around. Unless you have her water shoes on, then you're not even teleporting that in that case. But with the Trapper can of course trap up the choke points, and if you recall, we talked about how dangerous those choke points are. So I talked a lot about what killers are strong on Midwich, and I'm honestly wondering, how am I going to balance out? What survivors related advice could I give the survivors? And well, it's time to talk about, hey survivors, here are my favorite hiding spots on Midwich. Hiding in Dead by Daylight? SeeNog, are you crazy? And well, I mean, one, yes, but two, you got to try to understand your hook states are valuable resources, and if you're not hiding after you get unhooked, you're just going to squander another resource if the killer catches you again. But also, hiding, if you're dead on hook, then honestly, I'm not going to be mad if you're wanting to rat or hide, as long as you're doing something constructive, such as working on a gen when the killer's attention is off of you. But keeping your head down and not getting squandered from the game too early is going to be really valuable for you to know if you want to survive Midwich. So do I need to, I know I made this section about hiding, but do I need to talk about the bushes in the courtyard? Because the bushes are really good as far as hiding. As long as you're not being super obvious, you're not wearing super bright clothing. Because this courtyard itself is actually really dark. You would be surprised, but this courtyard is actually really dark compared to the rest of the map itself. And these bushes in the courtyard are away from most of the other gens. And so even if the killer does find you in here, they have to pull out a lot of time to get back to where they were going after they catch you, if they catch you. But you have this bush right here in the hedge. You have the bush next to the clock tower, which I'm going to recommend. My favorite hiding spot, as if the killer does smack me here, at least I can try to run to there. And the courtyard itself actually comes in quite a few different forms. Sometimes there's a gen out here. Actually, one game I had 2 gens out here. I was really surprised by that. And sorry about the map I made earlier. The map you saw, it doesn't cover all the gens in the courtyard. If you get caught here, you have this loop to defend yourself, and you have the clock tower. The clock tower is one of my favorites. So then the next hiding spots I'm going to talk about are these locker bulges. They're all over the halls. Well, every other hall has one. And sometimes the killer will check back here, but for the most part it's not super obvious. And if you're tucked away and you have keep your head down, the lockers are an alright place for cover. But what's an even crazier cover is corners like these. If the killer's over there, they may not see you come this way. But even if they're coming down the hallway, I suppose I'd have to really look in here, but you may have a decent chance there. Library has some nice bookshelves back behind here. And sometimes there is a gen in here. But just be careful, it only takes a split second for a killer to decide to look back here. Okay, can't get into that corner. Here's another locker bulge. This one's bigger though. Okay, and can we squeeze back here? So this corner right here is actually really mean. Let me see. You come in here as killer, and you might honestly be really concealed. It doesn't look like it, but you might honestly be really concealed behind here. I guess it's just so you have a good chance at cleansing that totem, maybe. But I recommend that. I recommend that more than the lockers, because if the gen's right there, then and the killer thinks someone's hiding in here, their first instinct might be those lockers. This could be a good hiding spot too. You're actually fairly concealed, especially if the killer's coming up that way. They might honestly not really go through this room, rather they may want to go through the halls. But if you're passing through here as killer, you honestly, you may not even think to glance this way. It really depends. One patch, this corner right here was really broken because the killer couldn't even squeeze behind here. You can no longer go back here, but the third floor itself is still a good hiding spot. It's just, you know, not Billy or Hillbilly proof, or not Hillbilly or Bubba proof, anything like that. But the killer would have to try and for walk up here if they want to check behind here, or just have one of those psychic aura add-ons or perks. All knowing. This could be another deceptive corner if the killer's going that way. If the killer's going that way, then they may spot you. And then here's a good chance for me to talk about the bathroom stalls, as they have some potential in here too. And you have a loop right down there if you get caught. One of the pallets down here I like. Sometimes a gen will spawn there. But then you have this corner here. Just be careful, because if you're like hiding near a gen, because if the killer has nowhere to hide, then there's nowhere to hide near gens. If you're gonna make a head-on play, you might as well make it these lockers near this hook. Nice. Now, end game. This is sort of what I'm referring to when you want to split up, because what may happen, your teammate goes for that exit gate, but then the killer comes in, chases them off, and then you being up here, when the killer's attention is diverted, you may be the only one able to finish opening that gate. You can keep an eye on this gate here through the whole of the science room. Warning, results may vary for stealth killers. Now might be a really good time to go over what perks are really good on Midwich. Okay, now take a look at that second floor. Can you guess what perk I'm going to recommend first for survivors? Balanced landing is really good for capitalizing on any upstairs generator and taking control and evading the killer from the second floor. And then we have Iron Will or Plot Twist, any perk that can let you stay quiet, as that extra bit of sound cue, I'm not gonna lie, that bit of sound cue may make the difference between the killer turning their corner and catching you or not. For me, pairing Quick and Quiet and Lucky Star is really fun, as I can duck into a locker without drawing the killer's attention and stay quiet while I'm in there. And then there are lockers everywhere, so there's a decent chance that you can find one to hide in. AoE or area of effect perks for aura perks have a really good chance to shine on Midwich. I'm not just talking about your bond or empathy, but how about also still sight, as you can stand still and take advantage of still sight, and odds are the killer's on the other floor, so you get to spy on them from the opposite floor. Now, for the killer side, AoE perks are also still really good. I'm talking Surge, or even Infectious Fright, or even Nurse's Calling. And these perks will feed you information and help you catch glimpses of who's above you or who's below you. Another really weird perk that gets to shine in Midwich, All Shaking Thunder. And if you really want to, pair it with coup de grace. But with All Shaking Thunder, or I like to call it Balanced Landing, for the killers, you get plenty of opportunities to jump from the second floor and then pounce on survivors with an extended lunge. Stealth perks and add-ons are your friends on this map, because your stealth perk, such as Trail of Torment, maybe Insidious, and even your Unforeseen or Dark Devotion. Seriously, any stealth perk. Oh, Hysteria is another good one. But Oblivious or Undetectable are your assets here, as these can boost your mobility around the map and attack survivors that don't know you're coming. And you have all the walls in Midwich to conceal your movement when the survivors can no longer rely on your terror radius to give them accurate information. Whatever side you play on, don't sleep on your AoE perks if you find yourself in Midwich, because with the double floors constantly all throughout Midwich, you're almost getting double the coverage when you're inside the school for your perks. I gotta say, of all the things I love about Midwich, the best part is getting the hell out. Now, let's talk about some loops you can use to help you get there. I got some fun ones planned. Check this out. Woo! In no particular order, these loops, you have your first one I want to show is the hallway loop. Here, I call it sort of the hallway loop because it's, let's see, there is that god palette on the other corner, but this may be the only actual loop that really extends into the hallway itself. And on top of that, it's a double palette. But you can waste quite a bit of the killer's time here. These palettes are really fun to grade. Not gonna lie. And you get to this loop, by the way, this should spawn, I don't know if it's, it might be RNG based, but this should spawn in the classroom A or B hallway here. And you'll know it's this classroom because the infirmary is right there. So you can come here from that god palette in the infirmary. And let's see, we have a doorway there, but you have the option to run around this wall here, greet this palette. The only real threat is when you're on one side of the wall. If you're not paying attention, the killer may double back on the other end of the wall and cut you off. And you can protect yourself when you use the doorways as your checkpoint. Okay. Right here is the quote-unquote hallway, which I suppose it kind of looks like a hallway. It's hard to... A lot of it feels like a classroom. Ooh, that's a stretcher. Anyway. And up here you have the library. And the library reserve. And we have a cluster here of 5 different pallets. But if you're dedicated enough, you might be able to chain these. Oh, I'm so sorry. Wait. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. If you're dedicated enough, you might be able to chain these and waste quite a bit of the killer's time. Now, you have... run in here. Killers, I don't know if I can recommend you ever break this door. Really, because you can crawl survivors into a very lengthy... get them boxed in here, but... and then there's a breakable door there, too, but I don't know if I would recommend that one. Breaking that one at all. Not when this right here is such a dangerous choke point that it can funnel any survivor. If you're close enough, it's a free hit. But you can't mind game this too much. I guess the mind games are meant for the library upstairs. But you have this loop here. If you can get the killer to respect it, you might be able to read the pallet a couple times. Really, you may want to try making your way here first. You may not want to drop that pallet. You may want to drop this pallet first if you have to, only because it's further out. And the killer's often going to try and pressure you on this side and break the pallet from there when you drop it. But you might be able to squeeze past them once you see them kicking the pallet, if they decide to kick the pallet. Sometimes they may just go for the bloodlust, and sometimes I do too. You have your typical loop here, though you want to loop... I've holed a couple killers here by looping this hole. Sometimes the killer, not realizing, will trip over this hole and fall down a little bit. This may be an unsafe side, if I'm being honest with you. This is a good hideaway. We talked about that earlier. And this pallet right here. Give me some ideas. I don't know if you can really greed this into this, but if it works, it works. And then this right here is unsafe. This pallet right here is better upright. Because once it's dropped, then the killer can easily either chase you around, ring around, or get you to vault only to meet you on the other side. And that's the library / hallway. And then over here we have the restrooms. There's a restroom here and a restroom here, and then 2 down there, and pathway. This used to be more of a secret pathway, really, downstairs. And it was blocked out by breakable doors, but the breakable doors don't spawn anymore. The devs took that out. And so you have this pallet here, and honestly, this pallet's really strong. And so if the killer follows you here, if you're downstairs, you try to make your way to this pallet and maybe greet it once before they have to really chase you around, and then drop it. And then when you drop it, I might recommend you try to be on this side, or killers, whichever side you're playing, I might recommend you be on this side, whether you break the pallet or running away. Now, survivors, if you're on this side, you have the option you can run around this way and you might be able to go upstairs if you're quick enough. But then, killers, if you're on this side, you might as well just break the pallet and make this a dead end. I don't see any point going around, and then it's that strong a pallet, really. Say you make it upstairs in one piece, I suppose you could try chaining the music room. Oftentimes there's a gen in here. Sadly, the Midwich does suffer from a lot of rooms not really being that mind gameable. But again, this pallet on the piano side may not be too safe. But you can do the ring around with this. Just bear in mind, this may be one of those pallets, so it's better upright. And then last, probably my favorite, the clock tower here. Absolutely the most single brain cell loop in all of Dead by Daylight. I love it. All you have to do, and I learned this from... No, I'm not going to pull your leg. I learned this from watching Mr. Taterhead. If you want to watch a really good Survivor and learn how to play Survivor, watch some Mr. Taterhead videos. But what happens here is you're running around this clock tower and you're just greeting pallets nonstop. Greeting pallets. And sometimes the killer will respect, expecting you to drop. Sometimes the killer will double back, and you need to be paying attention to the red stain. Sometimes they'll double back, or they'll moonwalk and try to mind game you. But with each of these checkpoints, you have just enough time to react. Up until maybe they like Bloodlust 4 or something. But you can waste a lot of time here if you find a killer that respects. Now, if you don't find a killer that respects, bummer. But what you can do is you can try and leave the killer on the inside and then drop the pallet out. And then killers, if you're playing this loop, I don't recommend respecting the pallets. Just walk through them. Walk through them. The double pallets seem scary, but honestly, like, just focus on getting rid of one of them. You may want to avoid what's called building a house, to be honest with you. That's where you burn both these pallets, and then suddenly this loop can't be used at all. And when you build a house, you just drop this pallet. And you drop this pallet. Oof. I don't know if I recommend that, because then the killer has you kind of boxed in. I mean, sure, if they're breaking a pallet, but even if you fast vault this pallet, unless you got sprint burst or something, you're sacrificing a lot of distance, I feel like. But honestly, don't recommend building a house here, because this is a really good loop. Even with one pallet, it's a pretty alright loop. And with sometimes there being 1 or even 2 gens in the courtyard, this could be a really necessary loop to try and make the most out of and try to conserve. But when you drag the killer out here, this is the equivalent of almost that really annoying car loop on the Garden of Joy, where it's just so far out of everything, or the table on the second room of Hawkins' lab, or the second floor of Hawkins' lab, where it's just so far out of, not so far, but often away from all the other gens that aren't in the courtyard. And any killer that's not nurse is going to be spending quite a few seconds getting to the second floor, if that's where they want to go. Or any killer that's not Dredge or Sadako or doesn't have a base kit teleport. But yeah, that being said, I really like this loop. And with that, we conclude our little walk through Midwich. Midwich is a beautiful map to look at, with tight and twisted corridors that not only encourage interaction, but demand your attention to stay in one piece within its rusted, blood-red walls, or otherwise collapse under the pressure. Hiding within its walls are a variety of wicked and potential strategies which are hard to find on most other maps, and even meta-defining killers are challenged with watching their step or else fall by the wayside. And it's this unique brand of chaos why I love Midwich as a killer and a survivor. Thanks for watching. In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday.
The silhouettes burning, embers rising high, like a chemical fire. The flame won't die. Intertwined, darling, you and I.
yourself now. Do what's best for you, James. James, you made me happy.